Hello and welcome to LionWing Talks, a weekly share where we discuss all things LionWing, tabletop games, Japanese games, and localization. I'm Bradley Hailstorm, your host, and also the founder and president of LionWing. And in that intro, I say that we discuss LionWing games, which we do. I say we discuss Japanese games, which we do. I say that we discuss localization, which sometimes we do. And I say that we discuss tabletop games. And yes, we discuss tabletop games because that is what LionWing is, a tabletop games publishing company. But it dawned on me that we don't really talk about the larger industry. I'll talk about insider stuff, I talk about behind the scenes stuff in this industry, but I often don't talk about what's happening in the industry outside of LionWing. So, I thought as I was thinking about tonight's show, how can I make the show a little different? I had discussed a few weeks ago that I was going to reconfigure the format a little bit, and we're going to see some of that reformatting come into the show and come into play starting tonight. So I am going to talk about tabletop gaming news in this show, and just kind of look at some of what's going on, in Kickstarter, some of what's going on with some interesting projects or projects that I find interesting that are happening right now, as well as just kind of talking about tabletop games in general, not at all related to LionWing. So it's going to be a bit of a kind of a news section. I mean, I'm not going to go through all the board gaming news in the world. I'm just going to pick out a few stories and talk about it. I figured, hey, you know what? It's time to implement this reformatting that I've been talking about now for like a month. And what better time to do it than now? So that's going to happen tonight. But as usual, we've got a format to follow, or at least a structure to follow, and we are going to be following that to some degree tonight. And if this is your first time joining us, thanks. This is how the structure goes. We always start off with a Q&A, and then we'll move into some project updates. And tonight I'm going to be throwing in some more stuff. Little light on the questions tonight, so this is going to be a little more free form. I actually didn't really put together or run a show for tonight's stream. Truthfully, I've been kind of burning the candle at both ends, I guess you could say. I think I have mentioned a few times anyway, at least in the past couple of weeks. I got a lot of stuff going on, right? Like we're gearing up for Project Requiem's Kickstarter, which is basic. Everything's basically finished now. I'm waiting on 2 more graphics from Winona, and then we're done there. So that's been crazy trying to get that up to speed. Still working on other projects that we haven't announced yet. That's always happening, right? And then I've got the upkeep of games that we have already released or have recently released or that we're getting ready to release. And so Wild Hunt Festival, has been shipping out to backers, which has taken a lot of resources, a lot of time. We got questions and logistical issues to sort through with fulfillment centers and the like, across the globe. We've got questions from backers, gameplay-oriented questions, or just kind of backer-related questions about the shipping of items and that kind of thing, timelines, distribution, etc., as well as gearing up for a light, retail release of Wild Hunt Festival. So we've got that going on. We've got Gun and Gun going on. We're putting, the finishing touches on Embryo Machine. A lot of stuff happening in the LionWing world right now. And then I've got all this other stuff happening outside of LionWing, and I've been a little tired lately. So burning the candles at both ends feels very real right now. I haven't probably felt this tired since the Testament days. As I mentioned, I was, staying up till 2 and 3 in the morning and then getting up at 5 or 6 there for a stretch of months to get Testament finished. Those days are long behind me, but I'm beginning to sort of emotionally feel that I'm back at that point. So no run a show tonight because I didn't quite have the time or the energy to put one together. So this is a little bit more freeform. With that said, let's get to some questions. We did have some questions this week, not a ton, but some things that I would like to comment on. So this comes from our Discord. And if you'd ever like me to answer a question on air, certainly you can join us live and you can just drop a question into the Twitch chat and I will answer it live. Or if you want to give it to me ahead of time, you can drop it in the Discord. If you haven't joined our Discord, you should think about it. Or you can drop it through one of our Kickstarter campaigns, a DM there, an email, social, etc. Most people just use Discord to get their questions to me. So that's what I'm looking at right now is Discord. And this one comes from Swordman21. Which LionWing game, past or revealed, would you expect to be most successful if it launched today for the first time? I mean, I don't really know how to answer that question because it kind of feels like a lot of our stuff is just now launching. So this would be different if we had this back catalog of years and years worth of games and I could dig into that back catalog and say, well, something that we released 8 years ago, I think it'd be pretty cool to release today. But we don't have that. We've got Sinome Coliseum, which released a couple years ago. But even that feels pretty new, all things considered. And then really, yes, Testament came out, but Testament was flown under the Japanime banner. So we don't really claim it as a LionWing game. It certainly is a LionWing project, but we don't sell it or anything like that. So really you're looking at Sinome or Wild Hunt Festival, which isn't even out in everyone's hands just yet. So I don't know if I really even have an answer for that question, which I know is not what you're looking for. I don't like to hedge or punt on any of my answers, but I don't really know how to answer that one. To be honest, I think that if we released Wild Hunt Festival today, it would be just as successful as when it first released, which was, I guess if you look at the Kickstarter, you could say, well, that was last year, or you could say that it's being released right now, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah, I wish I had a better answer for that, but I don't, because I'm not quite sure I can really answer that all that well. Maybe I'm just misinterpreting the question, Sword, and then you can correct me, and I can revisit this question for next week's show. Next question: what are your thoughts on the upcoming release of the Steam Deck? I think it's cool. Yeah, I think the pre-order situation was yet again, a shining example of clusterfuckery. That seems to be the way that these things go right now. And, I don't know if that is because inventory is so low because of logistics globally are so constrained still, even though they've gotten better, they still are pretty awful. So I don't know if that's what we're running into and that's what's creating the bottleneck. And people are sort of like in a frenzy to get new hardware right now. I think for a number of reasons, both obvious and not so obvious. So the launch of the pre-orders I don't think went super well, but the handheld itself is super cool. I think Nintendo has something to worry about, which is good. I think every company performs at their best when there is competition. And sometimes I think Nintendo gets real comfortable in their lane because they really, especially with Switch, no one else has really been in their lane. So they've been able to kind of exist in cruise control mode for quite a while. And the Switch has been phenomenal and has had a ton of great releases, both first party and otherwise. But sometimes it kind of does feel like, Nintendo is phoning it in. So maybe this lights a fire under them to step their game up, or maybe they're like, fuck it, we're Nintendo, we don't care. It doesn't matter if you're if you're Valve and if you're Steam, people are still going to buy Nintendo products. So have fun selling your machine. We'll have fun selling ours. I've got this awesome gnat flying around, so that makes for good video. And yeah, so I think it's cool. I'm interested to see how many games really run on it. But for me, I mostly use Steam for smaller indie projects, that you're not going to find on a console. I use it for older games. So for me, this will be fantastic. I love having the trackpad there as a means of, one second, that that Nat I'm gonna get before the show is through. I'm straight up telling you, I'm coming for you, Nat. Um, so I like it. Will I buy one? Probably. I don't know if I'll buy one right out of the gates. I'm definitely not going to go out of my way to like get into the rat race of trying to, secure a pre-order and all that. Like I did that with the PS5 and the Series X, and like that was annoying as hell. I'm not really looking to do that again right now, but I think I'll probably get one eventually. I'm not dying to have one. It's not like I saw it and I was like, oh, I've got to have that right now. So I'll probably wait on it. But I'm glad. I'm glad it will exist. I think it's a good product for the industry. Whether or not it's an actual good product, I don't know. But I think it is good for the industry that it exists. Is there a Zoids board game that you'd want to localize over to the West? I don't think I would. I saw this question when you first sent it, Churcher. I don't, and I've been thinking about it periodically since then. I don't know if I would want to localize any Zoids game that has been released in Japan. And I'm thinking about there have been a series of card game releases utilizing the Zoids IP going back to the early 2000s. I don't think I'd want anything though. Instead, what I would like to do is I would like to utilize that IP to build a game of our own. In fact, I mean we've discussed this before, and I think Churcher, you and I have discussed it in Discord. I think you could utilize the Embryo Machine rule set for a Zoids game, and I don't think you would have to really make any changes. I mean, it would be about as seamless as you could possibly get. It's one of those situations where you could utilize the Zoids characters. Obviously, you could create new battlefields. You could give it a theming that fits Zoids, and I think you'd be good to go because the rules for Embryo Machine really would translate very well to a Zoids experience. So I actually think you could churn something out like that pretty quickly because all it would come down to is just play testing, stats, cards, that kind of thing. You're not having to build a combat engine from the ground up. And that is something that I would like to do. In fact, I think there are a number of mecha properties that would fit really well into what Embryo has to offer gameplay wise and mechanics wise. Zoid certainly would be at the top of my list if someone said, hey, you could pick any IP and you could insert that IP into Embryo Machine. What would you choose? Zoids would be at the top of the list for sure. I don't know if it would be the number one thing that I would choose, but it would definitely be up there. I think if given the chance, I would probably do something more like Front Mission, Armored Core. Yeah, yeah, probably Front Mission or Armored Core. I think would fit in really well. I mean, Super Robot Wars OG would, I guess, oh, that would probably be my first pick if I could have like any series at all. I would pick the original generation, the original series of Super Robot Wars, not the crossover sub series. I think that'd do really well. But anyway, the point is, I think Zoids would translate really well utilizing the Embryo Machine rule set, and it would be one of my top picks if I could just choose from any intellectual property out there. Okay, next question from Roganite. What's your favorite party in Cradia? So it's changed a little bit. I think I went on the record to talk about my favorite party in Cradia a long time ago on one of these streams, probably 8, 9, 10 weeks ago. So funny enough, I still don't have my actual copies, my actual production copies yet. It's irony at its best. They are on their way. They should be here Saturday, but I still don't have them. So backers actually have the finished product before I do. Something quite funny about that, and just sort of makes sense in this pandemic world where everything is, where everything has been kind of tilted on its ear, and for lack of a better phrase, everything's fucked. So I've been playing a lot with my production sample copies. And now that the game is out there in the wild, it's in people's hands. I've been trying to experiment a little bit more with party compositions. I am a type of player that, like, once I find something, I tend to not really experiment with much more. I like I like kind of hanging in my pocket of comfort, and that just applies to like every facet of life with me. And it certainly is the case with board games, and it certainly is the case with games that require party makeups, JRPGs and the like, but certainly, obviously, Kradia as well, Wild Hunt Festival. However, with the game in the wild and with preparation, doing some prep for the competitive league, the team tournament league, I have branched out a little bit just so that I am more comfortable with a variety of party lineups. So I don't think I could give you a favorite right now because I am just kind of playing a lot of different things, more setups than I typically would, and probably more than I have in the past, especially when we were doing development. Yes, I played every character, and during our playtesting sessions, we tried to utilize as many party compositions as possible just to get comfortable with the game and to make sure things were balanced. I mean, we trusted Liner Note that things were balanced, but we wanted to make sure, on our end, especially when you're translating, you never know if, you know, the wrong translation breaks the game. So you always want to play test your games, even if it's a game that's already been play tested somewhere else in the world. You want to make sure that for your release, you're doing your due diligence and doing the same with the new translation. And so we played a lot of different party makeups. That being said, I still liked a couple teams. I'm trying to get away from that. So right now, it's hard for me to get away from Manad. So Manad is one of my favorite characters in the game. I like her lore, I like her aesthetic, and I like how she plays. I think she's a really solid healer. I think she is the, thinking of it in terms of Final Fantasy 14, she is the white mage healer. She's the most straightforward healer. She's the most probably consistent healer. She's the easiest healer to understand and to use well. And she's an all-arounder. You can sort of count on her healing in any situation. Whereas if you look at someone like Galateo is very situational. Actually, Beans and I were just talking about this last night. Galateo is sort of a slow starter, and you really have to play him differently than you have to play Manad as a healer. So I tend to always keep Manad in my party. I have struggled to branch out and kind of push her out of the party. That's been my one constant. Lately, though, I've been trying to build out the rest of the party in ways that I normally wouldn't. So I like Luca right now. Also, I think probably has a higher learning curve than most of the other characters in the game. But I like that. So Manad, Luca, Ursay. And then I've really been into balance types. So in the past, I've never really gravitated toward the balance types in the game just because they never really filled the niche that I was looking for with my play style. But I have been using Okla a lot more than I have in the past. And so Ursay, Okla, Manad, and Luca right now. It's a wild party composition, but I've been liking it, so I've been playing it more than any of the others that I've been experimenting with. So while I won't say that's my favorite, that is the one that I'm playing a lot with right now. Favorite Kradia boss? Oh, let's pull something up here. Okay, so I would probably say. This is hard because there are some bosses that I like their aesthetic more than I like their gameplay mechanics, and then there are some bosses that I like their mechanics more than I like their aesthetic. But I guess if I had to choose one boss that I liked both the mechanics of and the aesthetic, it would probably be um, the Route B Ancient Golem, or Challenge Mode Totem. I I think that would probably be one of those two. You know, I haven't looked at the chat. I don't even know if there's anything. Okay, there we go. Build your Zoid in EM. Yeah, you know, I mean, Frank in the chat said you can build out a Zoid in Embryo Machine if you want, and that's kind of the beauty of Embryo Machine is there's the option to kind of create any character you want and build your own custom deck. So even though Embryo Machine is not a Zoids game, if you wanted to incorporate a Zoids character into the game, you absolutely could with what you have available at your fingertips. So that's cool. Favorite level 3 skill with Monad. Let me think on that one. Okay. So, those are the only questions we got this week. So thank you for those who submitted questions. Now, we've had plenty of questions when it comes to Wild Hunt Festival. In fact, the Wild Hunt Festival chat has been very active lately with all manner of discussion and a lot of questions, a lot of gameplay questions. So I'm not sure if people have been keeping up, but we have a very in-depth Q&A, FAQ, if you will, if you prefer that term instead of Q&A, on Wild Hunt Festival, which you can find on LionWingPublishing.com, or you can just scan the QR code in the back of the Wild Hunt Festival rulebook. Because we've had a ton of questions over the past week on Wild Hunt Festival in terms of rules, components, backer rewards, et cetera, et cetera. So I appreciate everyone kind of getting into that chat, having fun, asking questions. I think I've pretty much answered every question that people have thrown out. I am a lot more intimately familiar with Wild Hunt Festival than I have been probably with... I probably know Wild Hunt Festival the best out of all of our games, simply because I spent the most time with it. As I mentioned a lot, like I put a lot of me into Wild Hunt Festival, and so I have a very different attachment, relationship, and bond with that game. It's in a way that I don't have with our other games. Certainly every game that LionWing produces, I have a very special bond to it. And I'm always involved in all of our projects in some capacity. And most of the time I'm involved on a ground level, kind of actually doing some of the work on the game in most of our projects. That won't be true for all of our projects going forward, just because we have so many kind of happening simultaneously. At this point, it's very hard for me to be as involved at a ground level. However, up until now, though, I've been very involved with all of our games, and yet I was still more involved in Wild Hunt Festival than I was all of those games. So I do have a special attachment to that game, which means I know its mechanics and its rules very well. I know its mechanics and rules better than any other game that we've produced, which has been nice because, you know, the game comes out, people have questions, people have gameplay questions, people have like edge case, you know, questions, people have just questions about basic stuff too, and it's been nice to have all of those questions and for people to be that engaged with the product, to go out of their way to ask questions in the Discord. And I think I've gotten to all of them. I try to get to those questions super quickly. I will say, just so that people know, I'm not typically around in the Discord a lot on the weekends. So if you do ask a question about any game on like a Saturday or Sunday, my response time is very hard to predict. Sometimes I'll be right on it, and like it's a Saturday afternoon, I just happen to be looking at my phone, I see the question come up, I answer it immediately. Other times a question will come through and I won't have picked up my phone for 12 hours or so, because it's the weekend, I'm trying to spend time with my family. Still, lots of questions going on there, which has been cool. Keep them coming. I'm glad y'all are playing the game. I'm glad it's been fun for you. Project updates. So I posted, let me pull up our various Kickstarters. So have I posted an update in each of our projects this week? I feel like I've posted July 19th, 2 days ago, for Embryo Machine. Gun was July 17th, 4 days ago. Wild Hunt Festival was this morning. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we've had an update post pretty much every day the past week. Not every day, but we've had a in the past couple days we've updated almost all of our campaign pages. So in looking at project updates, let's start with Wild Hunt Festival. We posted an update today. We're about 80%, a little between 80 and 85%, somewhere in that ballpark, having completed fulfillment for all backers of Wild Hunt Festival. However, there are still some regions that we're either getting to right now or we will get to in the next week to 2 weeks. So we posted an update today talking about UK, Canada, Australia, and China fulfillment. Australia fulfillment has started. It's been slow. We've had folks though in Australia who have gotten their games, which has been cool. It's UK and Canada that is held up here. And as I mentioned in today's update, I didn't fully understand how the process worked with Fun Again, and I should have asked questions about their process, and I did it. And so I made some assumptions, and therefore gave the impression that people would be getting their games in those territories sooner than they actually will. And I fucked up there. Lessons were learned, but fulfillment in those areas is coming. For Canada and the UK, pallets are en route to their depots. And then once they get to those depots, they will almost immediately begin fulfillment there. So they're coming. It's going to take a little bit. Could we theoretically see those pallets arrive at those depots next week? I think that's possible. It's probably more likely for Canada than it is the UK. The UK is just super hard to predict right now. After Brexit, it's just like shit kind of went haywire, and it's really difficult to lock down shipping logistics. I mean, it's already fucking difficult to lock down shipping logistics, and has been now for like a year. But the UK, it just adds another layer of complexity to it. But it's happening. Fulfillment will happen. It's just like, okay, does it happen next week? Does it happen the week after? Hopefully we don't stretch, into August, or if we do, hopefully we don't stretch too far into August. But we are working diligently to get that taken care of. And I apologize for my part in this, and just not doing enough research so that I could talk fully and intelligently about where we were and where we are in the process. So, China, fulfillment in China is going to wrap up the end of this week. And then we've got sort of our rest of the world category, which is just kind of like pockets, 1 or 2 orders here, 3 or 4 orders here, there, wherever. Most of the rest of the world category will also be wrapping up this week and next week. So yeah, I mean, fulfillment's coming along quite well with Wild Hunt Festival. Hopefully people, if you haven't already gotten it, most people have, but if you haven't, hopefully it shows up for you soon. If you haven't received your copy of the game yet, or your rewards, and you're in a zone that's already been fulfilled, that doesn't mean you need to like freak out just yet, because we're still kind of in that window of normal delivery time in those regions. Sure, a lot of people have already gotten their parcels in those regions, but that doesn't mean everyone has. And so if you're in one of those regions and you're like, well, shit, he's saying fulfillment's complete. And I'm in New York and I haven't gotten mine yet. Let's give it a little bit of time. Shipping logistics, yet again, are really hard to predict right now. And so, when I would say it's time to like reach out to me and say like, hey, I'm worried my package is lost. If we start getting into August, for second week of August, and it still hasn't shown up for you, and you're like in Iowa, all right, that's probably a problem. But until then, let's give it some time. So there's that. Oh, let's see here. Any chance of a few hints on Project Requiem tonight? Yeah, I'll talk about Project Requiem here in a little bit. Speaking of answering questions, I don't think you ever got back to me about the EX Stage 2 overdrive effect. Did I not? I feel like I did, but maybe I didn't. I'll check that here in a second. So that's where we are with Wild Hunt Festival. I'm pleased. I'm pleased with the progress that we made, with how by and large quick fulfillment has been. You never know how these things are going to go. I mean, you always hope for the best, and when you're working with a big company like Funnigan, you hope they, are a well-oiled machine, but they get backed up and they're dealing with the same crazy environment as everyone else. But they've been great to work with. They've been super communicative, and been quick to fulfill, all things considered. I know, if you're in one of the regions that we posted about today, you're probably thinking, well, not that quick to fulfill, and I get it. But we have fulfilled 80 to 85% of all backers already, which I think is quite an impressive feat. So that's cool. Next up for Wild Hunt Festival, we got DLC 2 coming, our Pumu Rhapsody DLC, which will be cool. And we've got our team tournament coming. So Real Beans, Sin Theory, and I met last night. Beans and Sin are our community leads. We met last night to kind of hammer out the rules of what this tournament is going to look like. Sin just sent me a mostly finalized version of what the rules are going to look like for that tournament. It is going to be a season-long league, a team league. So this will be different from anything else that we've done thus far. It's going to be really cool. What we've got planned for folks who want to be a part of this is going to be a very unique, very customizable, very engaging experience. It's cool to be able to take a cooperative game and make it competitive. I think people will find it interesting how we're going to achieve that. You probably don't immediately think like, I need my cooperative games to be competitive, but I actually think that once you see how we're going to do it, you'll think it's pretty cool. We're really excited with what we've come up with. We hashed out kind of everything last night over the course of 2.5 hours. We had been kind of going back and forth up until that point with ideas and whatnot, but we were really waiting for Beans and Sin to play the game. They hadn't gotten their games yet, and so that's why we had to wait a little bit of time. But last night, we kind of got it all figured out, and then Sin was writing up the final rules today. I'm going to post the rules and also a sign-up date relatively soon, maybe as soon as tomorrow, because we do want that league to kick off in the first or second week of August. Now, that means that some people probably won't be able to participate in the league because they will not have gotten their games in time. Or there won't be enough time for them to play the game and learn it before the league starts, and therefore they won't feel comfortable jumping into a team-oriented game where their skills are going to be relied upon by teammates. But this is just season 1. We are going to do more seasons of this, and so if you can't get in on season 1, just know that a season 2 is coming, and hopefully people enjoy season 1 enough that it makes season 2 that much more fun. We are going to be dividing folks into 3 teams. As I mentioned in one of the recent updates for Wild Hunt Festival, that this is kind of like a Guild Wars type system. In the lore of Wild Hunt Festival, there are adventurers guilds across Eastern Cradia where the game takes place. Now, there are 2 adventurers guilds in Eastern Cradia. There's the Parali Adventurers Guild and the Cadore Adventurers Guild. We're implementing a third, not guild, it's more of a faction. It's sort of a mercenaries faction. They're not officially recognized as a guild in Eastern Cradia, but they are a group of adventurers that have sort of banded together for this tri-faction tournament. The Tri-Guild tournament type of league that we're putting on here. We still haven't decided on a name for this yet, and I think that's actually going to be probably the trickiest part. The proof is always in a name. You always have to have a good name. It's got to be catchy. It's got to mean something. It's got to have a connection to the lore, and people need to be able to recognize what kind of event it is just from the name. So a lot goes into a name, right? So that might be our hardest part, which means I need to figure it out by tomorrow if I'm going to post this, post the rules and whatnot to the Kickstarter, to the Discord, and to social tomorrow. the heat's on, right? But yeah, so those are the basics. You'll get more of the details once we post the rules and all of that. I'm really excited about this. Really, really, really excited about this. Hopefully, we get a good turnout. You never know with taking a cooperative game and turning it competitive. You never know if people, you don't know if people want this kind of thing or not. I think it's cool though, and I think people want it, and I hope people want it. All right, gun and gun. Let's talk about gun and gun for a minute. So I posted an update to the Gun and Gun Kickstarter, what, 4-ish days ago or so. We are waiting for production to wrap up there. We have a mass production to wrap up. We haven't heard from the printer in the past couple weeks, which isn't abnormal. Typical mass production timelines can take anywhere between 25 and 35 days, but right now, that high end of that range is certainly being amended to take into account the effects of COVID. So what's normally a 25 to 35 day process, in some cases is 45 days, 55 days, 65 days. I mean, taking twice as long to get through just because the demand is there, but the personnel and the staff and the supplies to keep up with that demand right now is really challenging. It's not like the board game community has slowed down because of the pandemic. In many ways, the board game industry has been accelerated because of the pandemic. And so, manufacturers are trying to meet demand with a lot less resources to meet that demand. They would probably already be bursting at the seams to meet that demand in a normal environment. But with COVID on top of it, and all that comes with that, and all the complicating factors that get in the way of things running smoothly, suddenly they can't keep up with what would be, they can't keep up with normal demand, let alone heightened demand, which is where we're at right now. So it doesn't surprise me that, we're past the 35-day marker just about. I need to line up my timelines. And we still haven't heard anything. That is not at all surprising to me. I didn't want that to be the case, but I kind of thought like this is a possibility, and it's a strong possibility, and here we are. Now I'm not worried yet because I've worked with this printer before. This is the same printer that we printed Sonome Coliseum R through, and they were great. They were a great manufacturer to work with that first time. Uh, they're a reputable printer, very reputable printer. So I'm not like worried about any of that. The only thing I'm worried about is like, shit, how long are we going to have to wait, for this to finish? Manufacturing will finish at some point at this stage. So it's like, well, when does that happen? No one can really say. And I'm not sure the printer can really say, or else they would have contacted me already. So I'm sure they're swamped and trying to catch up. I will reach out to them soon, though. I'm trying to give them a little bit of grace, give them some leeway, because I know the demands on them right now. And I don't want to be that client who is constantly pestering them. But I will be touching base with them soon. So I mentioned in the update, we are going to be adding Overheat to Tabletop Simulator to get ready for our second event. Eyeing the end of July to get Overheat assets on Tabletop Simulator. Hoping that's the date. I don't want to hard commit, but that's what I want to have happen. We'll see if it does. If it's not the end of July, then it'll be, shortly thereafter. But Overheat is coming, and it's coming sooner rather than later. So Gun and Gun has been a little quiet lately. I think after the first event, people needed to recharge and step away for a bit, get excited about other things, and then the implementation of Overheat hopefully gets people excited again. New content, new strategies, new characters, new guns, new cards. So not only do you have the new stuff to play with, but you've got the new stuff that integrates with the old stuff, which effectively changes the old stuff too. So I'm really excited for Overheat to be introduced to everyone. I think that's about it for for Gun and Gun. I've been slow on getting the prizes taken care of for Operation Bulletstorm, but just know that I haven't forgotten about those, and I haven't forgotten about you. If you participated in Bulletstorm, those prizes are coming. Like I said, burning the candle at both ends. Let's talk about embryo machines. So we finally got that stretch goal map. We finally got its illustration. It's beautiful. It underwent a bit of a makeover from what was originally planned, from the concept art that we originally saw, and I could not be happier with the overhaul and with what they decided to make for that map. This is a cool map because it's mostly an kind of an interior map, but you've got some exterior elements too. It's to take place in sort of like some ruins, which is unlike any other map that is being offered in OG Embryo Machine. I think it's also a very complicated map in a good way. I think it's going to, because there are so many elevations and terrain types, I think it's really going to change how people approach combat. I think it's the most interesting map in vanilla Embryo Machine. I think it's one of the more nuanced maps, not just in vanilla Embryo Machine, but across its expansions as well. Those expansions that, have been released in Japan. Though I say that knowing full well that the maps in the expansions are super rad, especially in Gifted, which is the second expansion. Those maps are, those maps are next level. But this is really impressive, and I think it's definitely the best map of the original game. And it's cool because that was only possible, because of you all, because of hackers. This wasn't a map that existed before. And so to be able to not only have a new map that we were able to achieve through unlocking a stretch goal, but then for that map to be really good is a real, that's a real boon to the game. So I'm excited for people to be able to play on it. If you haven't checked out what it looks like, head on over to the Embryo Machine Kickstarter page and take a look, because it's featured in the update that I just posted. Monday? Yeah. Also, we've got the final-ish rulebook up for people to take a look at. If you are someone who likes QAing things and you've got a critical eye for spotting errors, punctuation errors, syntax errors, spelling errors, do us a solid. Check out that rulebook. The rulebook is a little dense for Embryo Machine, but if you like that kind of thing, some people love manuals. They love poring over manuals and looking over everything and really getting intimate with that rulebook. If that's you, head on over to the update. There's a link in there. Check it out. Give us your feedback. Let us know if we've got errors in some places. I think in that final rulebook, I think there are 2 or 3 errors that we need to take care of, and they're more visual errors, like a missing period, I think, in one of the cases. So it's stuff like that. It's not a big deal. But hey, if you can find more, by all means, go for it. Let us know. I mentioned in the update, when you look at something for so long, you stop seeing it. You know what I mean? We've been looking at that rulebook for a long time now, so no doubt we've stopped seeing some of that rulebook. So fresh eyes are always a good thing. Frank in the chat says, I don't know if it's just me, but I don't hear anything. Hopefully it's just you, Frank. That would not be good. I am still recording though, so if you're catching it on playback, then that's not an issue, because I'm looking at my mic input here. Definitely got audio there. And we are going to be adding another Embryo Machine to Tabletop Simulator. It's going to be Fornice this time, my favorite, Fornice. So that means his unit board, along with his deck. I don't know why I'm saying his, along with its deck, as well as its character piece, its unit piece to move around the map. So look out for that soon too. We got a lot of stuff happening, like end of this month, early July, early September, with the updating of various tabletop sim versions, as well as DLC, showing off new assets, the launch of Project Requiem. There's a lot happening right now. I feel a little overwhelmed, not gonna lie. So that's Embryo Machine. So let's talk about Requiem. I've been a little tight-lipped on Requiem lately. we are very soon going to be officially unveiling. We are very soon going to be officially unveiling that project. I think people are really going to like what they see. I do want to give a little bit of a hint. So I mentioned that Requiem is going to have a soundtrack. So I figured, as a different type of hint, I would play you a clip of its main theme. So, and maybe it gives you a hint as to what it could be, or the type of game it might be, or what its theme might be. Let's find out. Let's see if this is going to track. Give me a second. Hopefully it does. It should. So, just a little something to tide you over. I know, I don't know what that means. Then I don't know what it means. What does that mean? It's a bop. Yes, indeed, it is a bop. It is. So Requiem's soundtrack will be our most innovative and also our most eclectic. I think I've mentioned that before on stream, and its main theme, I think, really embodies that. I think it doesn't sound like anything that we've produced so far, and I think you can probably get a little bit of a hint as to the game's styling just from that particular composition. Sounds like one of those games that's in the request page. You mean in the localization recommendations page on the in the Discord? Is that what you're talking about? So we are much closer to revealing Requiem than we're not. You know what I mean? I can't say for certain when we're gonna reveal that, but it's gonna be pretty soon. I would say within the next week or so, maybe a little over a week, like in the next 8-9 days. That's the hope. So you won't have to wait much longer, is what I'm saying there. Okay. Those are our project updates. So let's talk about what's going on in the world of the tabletop industry. I first want to start with, there's been a trend lately, and I love seeing it, and I hope it continues. There's been a trend lately, though, of Japanese tabletop games showing up on Kickstarter. Now the rub of it is these are Japan-only releases, but it's very cool to see designers and creators getting comfortable in the crowdfunding space and raising funds for themselves, because that only helps us in the end. Not us as LionWing, but like us as players. The more designers are making money, the more games they're able to put out. And at the end of the day, isn't that why we're all showing up? We're all showing up to play games. And so I love seeing this trend of Japanese designers taking to Kickstarter. Certainly, there have been plenty of crowdfunding campaigns for Japanese board games taking place in Japan and on Japanese platforms, Campfire and the like. But it's cool to see the expansion to Kickstarter because some of them have done extremely well on Kickstarter, like Hackclad. But we've got a new one, a new Japanese card game up on Kickstarter. I don't know when it first launched. There's only 7 hours left. I think it was a fairly quick campaign, if I'm remembering correctly. Let's see here. Yeah, so the campaign started on July 8th, and it's actually for a new version of a card game that's been around since 2014, 2015, called Speria Material, which is a boxed card game with it's a battle card game for 2 players. Small decks of cards, 25 card decks. Uses a battle mat of sorts. So it's got that strategic tactical element to it, which is cool. It hasn't performed super well on Kickstarter. It's not like Hatclad, which I don't even remember the final total for Hatclad, but I think Hatclad maybe took in 6 figures or thereabouts, pretty close to it. Let's see here. Yeah. So Hatclad took in 6 figures. This is barely breaking $1,300. But it's cool. It's still cool to see a Japanese creator taking a chance on this. And Sperry Material is a cool card game. So now I haven't played what they're funding here on Kickstarter, obviously, but I did, and this was a while ago. This was a couple years ago. I did play the original Sperry Material card game, and it was fun. I mean, we didn't pick it up for localization or anything. But it's a cool battle card game that does some interesting stuff. It's got some cool art, an interesting user interface, and I think what I like about this particular Kickstarter is they're taking the opportunity to really add to the game because of Kickstarter. So it's normally a 2 player game. They're adding a solo play mode. I think they're adding a 3 and 4 player mode as well. And from my understanding, that's happening pretty exclusively because of the Kickstarter. So there's only 7 hours left in the campaign. So if you want to get on this, you don't have a lot of time. But it is cool. It's a small form card game. This isn't going to require you to really make a huge investment. It's small form, not a lot of components to it, which means the price is very reasonable. The original Spear Material game, if I'm remembering correctly, actually won like a few awards at various conventions. I think it actually was recognized at Game Market. This was for one of the expansions, I think, like back in 2018. So the game has merit, and it's got some good designers behind it, some cool art. Um, I'm glad to see it happening. Like, is it my favorite battle card game? Now, this has been several years since I played the original game. No, but it was cool. Um, and I think I'm mostly just excited to see like more Japanese creators taking a Kickstarter than anything. I'm glad it's this game that they're bringing to Kickstarter, but I'm also just glad that people are doing this. Um, I'm looking at the buy-ins right now. I didn't really look at the reward tiers before jumping on here. The game doesn't have a lot of backers. It's got like 20 backers. So again, this is a very small project, and it's a very niche deck building card game with not a ton of nuance, but enough nuance to have some fun. I think it's about like a $25 game. I think there are various tiers here that, go up to 50, 70, 80, 100 bucks. But really, you could buy it at 25 bucks and be good. So it's cool to see this. I hope this trend continues. In the rest of the tabletop gaming space, I'm just going to pick out some stuff that excites me. So I don't know if anyone's checked out Mantic's new board game, Overdrive, which is like this really interesting Overwatch inspired arena battler. I also get like some weird like Blitzball vibes from it, and I have no idea why. Maybe it's just the colors. But this looks super cool. So, I'm looking at their one of their press releases here. This is a true like arena style game with a shit ton of play modes, which is what I like to see from arena style games. Nothing bothers me more than cracking open an arena game and having one mode of play. It's my biggest problem with Warhammer Underworlds is like there's really only one way to play that game, and while I like Underworlds a lot, it's like give me some variation, right? And they've introduced some things for Underworld that have changed up how to play that game. But it's hard to compete with something like Overdrive, which gives you what 6 game modes right out of the box: King of the Hill, Capture the Flag, Pass the Bomb, Invade, Kill Streak, and Dodgeball. Like this is the type of thing that I like to see. The game looks super sleek. It's a boxed game, right? So like not a huge investment. This is cool. This is something that I will be pre-ordering. I like Mantic by and large, and I'm a sucker for fantasy sports. I just am. It's why I love Blood Bowl. It's why I love Blitzball. It's why I liked Guild Ball when that was a thing. Yeah, this is just cool to see. Components look cool. It's super colorful. The heroes look very interesting. There's a fucking shark, like a humanoid bipedal shark. It's like what? Yeah. So I'm excited about Overdrive. Some other things that I'm excited for. I saw that Games Workshop posted a little bit about their forthcoming Warhammer Old World project. So I think it was a couple years ago that Games Workshop revealed that they're working on resurrecting, bringing back Warhammer Fantasy, the old world setting, which effectively was blown up several years ago through the End Times event. And then that gave way to Age of Sigmar and everything in the Mortal Realms. It's cool that they're bringing back the old world. I know that there were and still are quite a number of folks who were at minimum disappointed and at worst mega pissed that not only was the old world going away, but in its place was basically the Warhammer version of Power Rangers. And don't get me wrong, I fucking love Age of Sigmar. I had my reservations about it in the beginning, but I very much so embrace the Mortal Realms a lot. I think Sigmar is a very cool setting. Age of Sigmar is a very cool setting, very cool factions, a nice blend of like sci-fi fantasy. I've read most of the Age of Sigmar books. I really like that setting. And I can't deny that the old world is just fucking cool. So it'll be neat to see what Games Workshop has up their sleeve for the old world. So here's a little blurb. They're being super tight-lipped about this, and I get it because I think this project is still a number of years away, and that's fine. Games Workshop has enough for us to spend our money on between now and then. But I like this. From this particular article that they posted on their website, it says, the last time we checked in with the development of Warhammer the Old World, we showed you the first look at the map of Bretonia from the time in which the game is set. This time around, we're heading north of the Empire to frozen Kislev. But there's more. We also managed to catch up with the project's leader, Andy Hoare, who joined us to answer some questions, the most hotly debated questions about the game's development. And then they say, this project has been cloaked in a veil of secrecy for a while now. the map that they're building out for the reintroduction of the old world is ever expanding, which is cool. I'm excited to see what changes uh, have come to the old world. I'm also interested in like how they're going to work this into the timeline, because I think there's a lot of ways that they could slice this pie. I kind of have what I have my own hopes for this project and how they handle it, and from a lore perspective. But who knows? I'm for all of its issues. I really do trust, by and large, Games Workshop. They have absolutely made some missteps along the way, and certain projects have been real misfires and failures. But I would say, especially in the past 5 years, they've really upped their game. Their quality, their quantity, and their dedication to their craft and to the industry is second to none. I will be subscribing to. Uh, Now I'm blanking on their upcoming subscription service. I want to say Warhammer Plus, but like I don't think that's it at all. Um, so I'm excited for more Warhammer. I'm always excited for more Warhammer, even if I'm a terrible painter and most of the time I never paint anything. Um, I love the property and I like what they're doing with pretty much all of their lines. The new we've got someone in the chat. Frank is talking about actually Kill Team, which is a 40k offshoot, kind of a smaller skirmish level variation of 40k. Frank says the new Kill Team looks like it's going to be really good. Yeah, they were real quiet on Kill Team for a while, and perhaps you and I even maybe discussed this briefly, Frank. But there for a while, I was a little worried with the fate, or yeah, I was worried for the fate of Kill Team. Because it seemed like all their other product lines were getting attention, but not Kill Team. There were no new releases. There was very little discussion on it on their Warhammer community page. Very little of it was shown or talked about in White Dwarf. It just seemed like they were kind of done with the line, which bummed me out. I was happy because I was like, well, at least it lasted longer than Shadow War. But I kind of wanted Kill Team to continue longer than I thought it had at that point. But I'm glad that my concerns were unfounded, and that they still see Kill Team as a viable product line, which is great because I don't like love large scale Warhammer. Even when I play like 40k proper, Age of Sigmar proper, I always do small point armies just because like I don't want to fucking be like around a table for 5 hours or something. Like that shit's not fun for me anymore. Like I want to get a game in like an hour. Hell, if I can have it, I want to get a game in at like 40 minutes, which is why I like. It's why I like Underworld. It's why I like AOS skirmish when that was a thing. That's not really a thing anymore because we do have Warcry now. I love Warcry. I like Kill Team. I like smaller form, smaller army, faster pace Warhammer stuff. And so the fact that Kill Team isn't going away anytime soon, or at least that's what it appears like, is fantastic. Something when it comes to Warhammer, something that surprises me is the legs of Necromunda. So, this reboot of Necromunda a few years ago, I think we were all like, all right, so like this is going to be sort of like a bit of a boxed like Games Workshop experience, more than a boxed experience, but less than a full-fledged army builder. And the legs of Necromunda has just like been so impressive. I expected support for that game to be pulled pretty quickly, 18 months after release, and Necromunda is still a thing, which is exciting because I think Necromunda is probably the least appreciated, most underrated subcategory of any Warhammer product line. So that's cool. Enough about Games Workshop. Something that I did want to talk about. So y'all know that I love TRPGs. There is a new TRPG that's up on Kickstarter right now called Blood Shadows Chronicles of the Guff, which is like this super rad fantasy noir RPG. I don't know if anyone else has checked this out. I don't know how many people in our community play TRPGs. But but shit, this game looks super cool. So, like, if you just look at it via the Kickstarter, it's a pretty bare bones approach to running a Kickstarter campaign. But the content that is there, how they describe the game, and the few art assets that they do show off, like, this game has style, it's got substance, it's got the setting that I love. Like, I love me a good, like, epic fantasy, low fantasy, dark fantasy, whatever setting in a TRPG. I like some sci-fi, I like some cyberpunk, I like some modern, but there's something super cool about, like, this weird throwback 1930s horror mixed with fantasy setting that just, like, really speaks to me. It's why I've always wanted a Crimson Skies tabletop RPG, because I love that, like, alternate universe, like 30s weird mashup of various genres. 1930s, but the tech of 1930s is where we were at when we were in the 50s, that kind of thing. And Blood Shadows seems to do a lot of what I like. So it's built off the Savage Worlds engine. I don't have, like, a ton of love for Savage Worlds, if I'm being honest, but I will put up with it if it means that I get a fantasy noir game like this, like Blood Shadows is. So the campaign just launched. Let's see here. Yeah, yesterday. I just found out about it this morning. I'm really hopeful for this campaign. So they're asking for what, 8K, and they're at 5,500 right now. So they're doing well. They're doing really well, and which is really cool, because, again, like, the presentation on the Kickstarter page is very just straightforward, pretty minimalistic, and I think the fact that they've already almost reached their funding goal with so little, like, graphically, I think really just speaks to the quality of the game, that people are gleaning from what is there in terms of, like, the Kickstarter copy itself. So maybe give it a look if you like the sound of it, if you like TRPGs, if you're looking for something that's not fantasy based, because it seems like, most TRPGs are fantasy based, then this might be something for you. Their masthead, their main Kickstarter top of the page graphic is just, like, super rad. Oh my god, everything about it is so good. Anyway, so those are just a couple stories that I grabbed that were interesting to me. I want to work in more tabletop gaming news into this show, and so tonight was the first foray into that. I'll continue to tweak how I implement this, what I talk about, how much I talk about these things, but definitely want to bolster what LionWing Talks is, what it covers, and how we present that information. So I think that takes me about to the end today. We're at 1 hour and 8 minutes. That is my sweet spot. So I'm always shooting for that hour to hour and 15 minutes. I'm right in between tonight, which is perfect. And I see that my Wild Hunt Festival box that I threw up last week to take a picture of for the Discord is still sitting up there. I forgot. I should probably take that down. Because I do have a glaring omission over here. Normally it sits right here, and it's most certainly not there. Oh, the EM contest. Yeah, so Frank is asking about the EM contest. How could I miss the EM contest when I was talking about Embryo Machine earlier? So I don't have a lot to talk about that I didn't talk about in yesterday's or 2 days ago's Embryo Machine update. However, I did see there was at least one person in the EM channel in Discord asking what exactly a scenario is. And this is my fault. I sometimes I just make assumptions about things, and I think I made the assumption that if you backed Embryo Machine, you've played a war game before. And, like, what a bad assumption to make, because I think most people actually haven't played a war game, even if you backed Embryo Machine. So scenarios in war games. Actually, Frank, I think you may have jumped in and talked about what scenarios are. And so scenarios are objective-based missions, typically, that add substance and new ways of play to a game's gameplay loop. I think Sai was the one in the chat asking, like, what is this, like, what will the fan contest entail? Do we need art? Do we need what else did it like? Is it a concept? Is it a story? Does is art expected? Do we need to balance out what we're doing here? So no, this contest, and I'll go into more detail about it in the next Embryo Machine update when I really kind of lay this all out and give a timeline on when people can start submitting their work and when our cutoff date is. I'll go into more details then, but I will say that don't think of this as more than what it actually is. So I'm looking for folks to engage in how to, creating interesting scenarios that people can play through that are going to change how they approach the game. So I kind of use the term missions and scenarios interchangeably because sometimes I think missions is more indicative of what this is, and sometimes I think scenarios is more indicative of what this is. But a mission can be anything from sort of a capture the flag, King of the Hill style mission, get to a certain point on the board and hold that zone, hold that area. But it doesn't have to be that. If you want to add a story to the scenario, I think you should. I think that'd be cool. If you want to add art to that scenario, I think you should. I think that'd be cool. But you don't need any of that. I'm going to be choosing these submissions not by like how you present it and if it's in a pretty package, but by the content of what's there. But you don't need a story and you don't need art for me to say, you know what, the content of this is the one that I'm looking for, or the content of this is not what I'm looking for. I'm really looking for cool missions for people to play that'll be interesting, that'll be unique, that'll ask people to play in a way that they're not normally playing. And Embryo Machine is mostly it's sort of a team deathmatch or a deathmatch type of experience. And yes, we included 3 missions via stretch goals, but outside of that, there are no other ways to play the game unless you house rule a bunch of stuff. And don't get me wrong, like I want the community to gather around this game when it comes out and to create their own missions, and I want people to share their own scenarios amongst one another. I'm just trying to get a head start on that. I want people to be engaging with the property now, even though the game isn't due for another 5 months or so. And one of the ways to do that is through scenarios, because to create a cool mission for a game like Embryo Machine, you don't need to know the lore. You don't need to have art. You just need to create fun and interesting ways for people to experience the game that is different from that traditional team deathmatch experience that Embryo Machine offers. So, if you do want to add story to the game, I don't think you need any lore, because I think you could create a story for this, or a mission backdrop or a mission briefing without knowing all the ins and outs of the world of Velm. And I think you could still produce something that was cool narratively, that we on our end and on Kozaic's end could fit into the lore. So like, you don't have to know all of the aspects of the story to write a story around the scenario that you want to present. You can just kind of create your own story, not having any sort of context for what this world is, and we can take those elements and we can fit it into a story that does make sense. I mean, that's kind of what happened with the Wild Hunt Festival fan contest. Anime, who was the winner of it, Anime 9001, he only had so much of the context of Wild Hunt Festival, because it's like, we were doing that fan contest like a month or two after the campaign ended. Clearly, like, no one knew what this world was. No one knew the constructs of the world of Kradia. And so Anime just sort of took it and was like, all right, I'm going to make my own thing and I'm going to submit it. And then like, maybe they can use it exactly as it is, or maybe they can take it and they can take elements of what I wrote and they can figure out how to work that into the lore. And that's exactly what we did. And that's exactly what we're going to do with the Embryo Machine fan contest as well. Hopefully that all makes sense. Again, though, if you're wanting hard, concrete details, look for that in the next EM update, because that's where I will include those, just as I did for the Wild Hunt Festival contest. Okay. Now I think that's about it. This has been a different kind of show, because not only have I done different things, but I've had no show notes. So this has been like totally off the cuff. Hopefully it was an enjoyable one. We are going to be implementing more segments into LionWing Talks as I've mentioned before, I want to bring on people, not only people from the LionWing team, but people in the community. I want to get Fern on here to talk about Gun and Gun since he was the Operation Bulletstorm winner. I want to do that probably right around when the game is delivered and people start playing the physical game. I'd really like to have him on sometime after that. But if you are someone in the community and you feel really passionately about tabletop games in general, or Japanese games in general, or LionWing games, and you want to talk about it on air with me and you're okay being on camera, hit me up. I would love to have folks from the community on this show, in addition to having LionWing team members. I know Winona and I are going to be representing our localization presentation that we did for our time working on Gun and Gun. We did a live stream of what it was like to localize Gun and Gun back in October while the campaign was live and active. We recorded that, but it didn't. The quality was really bad, and y'all know me. I don't like to produce anything where the quality's bad. So we're going to be coming back on to talk about that probably right around the time when Gun and Gun starts getting in people's hands. We're probably going to do that for Project Requiem as well. And I'll probably bring on some of the translators from Project Requiem. So you are going to continue to see the show not only evolve, but change and bring in new elements and get away from the structure and the format that we've exclusively had up until tonight. We started the show in February. This is episode, I think, 25. So we've had, however many months now, 5 months or so, actually a little over 5 months. We've had the show formatted in a very specific way. And as I said, 4 or 5 weeks ago, when I first floated this idea by everyone that, hey, we're going to be changing up the format, it was time for a change. We did things that way for a while, and now we're going to be doing things differently. And hopefully the show just continues to evolve as time goes on. So thanks for hanging in there with us. Thanks for joining us for yet another week. As always, we're here Wednesday night, 9 p.m. ET, here on Twitch every week. I don't miss it. Even if I got nothing to talk about, I'm here to talk, and I will figure out a way to talk for at least an hour. You can bank on that. Sometimes we have a sister show that takes place on Mondays at 9 p.m. ET called LionWing Plays, where we, as you guessed it, play LionWing games. I will say that we probably will be doing a special edition of LionWing Plays sometime soon. And really, it's going to be more like a Twitch Plays, and it's going to focus on Wild Hunt Festival because Wild Hunt Festival is a pretty ideal game based on its systems and mechanics to use as a Twitch Plays type of game. So we don't have a date on when we're going to do that, but it's going to be soon because I want to do it while people are still thinking about Wild Hunt Festival, still learning the intricacies and the trappings that the game has to offer. So you can expect to see that sometime soon, in addition to the team tournament again. So we've got lots of stuff planned for additional content for LionWing stuff. Hopefully y'all join us and stick with us. A lot of you have been here from day one, and I so greatly appreciate it. For those who are new to LionWing, for those who are new to the stream, you guys are awesome. Thanks for jumping on board. Hopefully we've got games that are coming, revealed and not revealed, that'll have you excited, and hopefully you'll stick around and give us a shot. I appreciate everyone though supporting LionWing. This is in many ways a labor of love, trying to localize and publish games that would not be localized and published otherwise. And that means, we deal in a niche product, and you've got to have passionate people for a niche product and a niche company to survive. And so far, Project Requiem is going to be what our fifth project by ourselves, but sixth project overall. And that's only been possible because you all have shown up and supported us. So thank you so much. Without y'all, we don't exist. LionWing doesn't exist. I mean, that's like, it's just straight up the truth. So really, it's been fun, and I can't wait to see what else happens in 2021 and 2022. Because as I said to Sin and Beans last night when we were in our team meeting, I'm now booking out for 2023 for projects. So 2021 and 2022 are all booked up. We're now booking into 2023 for localization partnerships. So a lot of cool stuff on the horizon, a lot of stuff you might not expect, which will be really neat to unveil. I won't be. I still believe in kind of the old school way of doing things. Of like we only talk about and reveal a project when we're getting ready to kind of go into a Kickstarter campaign or a pre-order campaign or something like that. So as much as I would love to lay out like our whole release schedule or timeline, I'm gonna make people wait for it. I apologize, but hopefully that'll make the each announcement that much more special. So we've got some cool stuff planned for you, and Requiem. Be on the lookout for news of that very shortly. You'll hear it first if you're in the Discord, because you always get all the news first if you're in the Discord. Anyway, I'm rambling, and I'm Bradley. I'll see y'all next week.